Hey folks, it's Fernando doing a video for the Modern Survivalist, and today I'm going to be doing a Pocket EDC update, which is something that I haven't done in some time. Besides, I did move to Spain, and there's a few things that are different. Basically, because it's a different weather, of course, compared to the Irish weather, and legally as well. Here you can have a few things that were a little bit more problematic or downright banned in Ireland, such as the OC spray. So there's a couple little things there worth mentioning. So let's quickly go through it. From the go, you see that I always stick to somewhat of the same stuff. I still have my cell phone, the OtterBox, with the OtterBox Defender case. This is the Galaxy Note 2. I don't feel any need to rush into upgrading yet, especially because it's still a fast phone, has plenty of memory space, just the screen is still great. You know, basically does everything that I want in a phone. It has its built-in GPS, which is pretty important, or at least I consider it to be. You know, some folks don't know that, but it really depends if it has a built-in GPS or if it's using it through the network signal. Not the same thing, because if you don't have any phone network signal, you can still use the GPS in it. I did change the battery yet again, because the one that I had replaced it with, I think I went with the battery was an Acker brand replacement battery. Was okay, but I wasn't exactly happy with it, so I went with a generic one, which was much cheaper, and as I found out, worked out better. So still using the same phone, but with a new battery, which is one of the other nice things that some of the latest phones don't have, which is replaceable batteries. I really like the idea of being able to replace the battery of my phone if I ever feel the need to do so, and not be, you know, stuck with a phone that has a non-replaceable battery. I think that's completely makes no sense. Same wallet as before, the Quicksilver lemon green, lime, or whatnot color. The only thing worth mentioning here is, yes, the importance of having cash. You know, whenever people are wondering what is it that they should have with them and whatnot, many times goes without saying, people forget the importance, the value of cash during emergencies. I always make sure I have a good amount of it. These are, I don't know how much I have here, but I don't know. You know, a good amount of it, because it always comes in handy. You just never know for emergencies and such. And yes, of course, besides your plastic, you know, your cards and such, but cash is king, definitely so. So I was explaining that here in Spain you don't have a problem with OC spray, which in some countries it's not allowed. It's not legal for you to have. For example, in the UK and in Ireland, it's illegal for you to have OC spray. I think that's outrageous. I mean, that's basically like the first thing I think of when I look at something like this, a spray for defense. I think of women self-defense, right? This is the thing that you basically give to your wife, to a girlfriend, to a daughter, thinking of her ability to defend herself from from assault, from rape, all those things. You know, you can have somewhat of an equalizer, not as good as a firearm, but better than nothing. And it's something that is non-lethal. So why make something that's not lethal, intended for self-defense, illegal? I think that's, you know, that's outrageous, and people should be very upset about that. But, you know, doesn't seem to be the case in some places. It has some kind of, because this isn't usually found in the Sabre red products. NIDC defense group, because this is imported, you know, so it has its, you know, like its own standards within Spain. Still the same product, still Sabre red. So the other product that seems to be quite good is the one from Cold Steel. I think it's called Inferno. Haven't tried it, but Sabre Red is a really reliable brand. You know, it's a good product. You know, they put things together right. And this format is, I like a little bit of a larger canister, but this is very compact, easy to carry with you, and you know, you can just easily throw it in any jacket pocket or your pants. Yeah, you really should have one of these if you don't. You know, you work with whatever is legal, whatever it is that you are. If you can have your knife, your spray, your gun, depending on your location and such, work with that. Carrying on, still the Zippo lighter with the Thunderbird insert, because sometimes I forget to mention these things, and people say, well, the Zippos dry out pretty fast. That's true, but this insert, there's a brand, Thunderbird. This insert allows you to use a flint and wheel, but using a gas tank there basically turns it into a butane lighter, but with the Zippo exterior case, which I like. Really fits nicely in my jeans pocket intended for the lighter. It is a little bit heavy because this is all metal construction. And before you even ask, some of you guys ask every once in a while, these badges are made by a guy called Relic Raider. If you Google him, you'll eventually find him, but I don't think he's making these anymore, unfortunately, but that's what it is. Still, the idea of combining the Thunderbird insert with a traditional Zippo case, I think that's a pretty good combination. I'm pretty happy with that over the years. And the problem with a Zippo, as great as it is that it always dries out. And for some of us guys, and I'm a pretty pretty paranoid, pretty obsessive regarding my EDC, so I don't know if there's a lot of people that are more into it than I am, and I still found it pretty much of a drag to every week practically refilling my Zippo. Pretty much a waste of time. And the thing is, I was always worried that one day I would need it, and one day when I need it, it wouldn't be working. And the idea of EDC from a modern survival perspective point of view is the stuff you have should be working when you need it the most. And if it can go wrong, it will go wrong exactly at that moment when you happen to need it the most. So I wanted something that no matter what, I completely forget about it, but the day I need a flame, it's gonna be there, it's gonna be working. Not huge of a gas tank there, of a butane deposit, but enough to start a fire for sure a few times, no problem. Still using the same keychain as before. I have my, and since we're doing this, let's check it right this moment, because I haven't checked it in some time. See if it's still working. Yeah, still is. But as you see, it's kind of not high enough, so I have to refill the little peanut lighter. This one is made of titanium. A few of them floating around. If you look them in eBay or Amazon, I don't even remember the name of this one, but they're still available in titanium or stainless steel. Even the cheaper ones of alloy metal are just a couple bucks, and basically the same system. They really last for quite some time, several months. One of the things that I did check recently was this USB cable that I have for charging my phone. Whenever sometimes you need to charge your phone, you have an outlet but you don't have the cable. I thought this was a great solution, and in fact it is. Now the thing is, you still have to check it every once in a while, because I checked it today and I found out that it's not working anymore. I don't know what happened, if the cable broke on the inside somehow, but the lesson is still there. Check your gear, check your stuff, make sure it actually works as it's supposed to. Especially with this kind of thing that can go wrong. USB, micro USB, still working okay. I have ordered another one. I think what was it, Kingston or something along those lines. This one is still working very well, no problem whatsoever. I don't like this cap thingy that it has. I feel it's gonna be falling off anytime soon. But other than that, really no complaints. 16 gigs of memory. I'm not using it at all, but I'm not using it all up. That's what I mean. I have, of course, the files that I want to have with me at all times, but more than enough space left. But I found one that I really liked, especially the aesthetics, and it seemed to be very rough, very tough, pretty much dust-proof and waterproof. And it was a 3.0 USB, so I'm gonna be giving it a go, see how it works. Still using a lot the Victorinox Minichamp, my favorite keychain multi-tool. I have replaced this some time ago for this newer model that instead of having the light, the other one that I had, just pressed the shield there and it had an LED light. I don't see the point of it anymore, and find that having the tweezers is something that I'm honestly using more, especially because I already have plenty of flashlights all over, so no need for that. Instead, the tweezers, definitely something that I like using. And you have a pen here as well, bunch of tools there, the small Phillips screwdriver, the little blade, all those things that I've learned to love over the years that the Minichamp has, still there. One of the mods that I'd like to try sometime is maybe flattening this up, putting it on edge there. I think I've mentioned it many times before, but never seem to get around to do it. What is it? Small cut and hook blade, which a scrapper sometimes called, depending on what Victorinox is calling it at the time. And this other screwdriver, at least I use it, I think it's a nail cleaner, but I use it often as a little poking, prying tool dash flat Phillips screwdriver. Little pry bar that I honestly don't use a whole lot. Sometimes I end up using it, maybe opening packages and such, but because it's so compact, and besides, the idea of having a little pry bar is sparing the blade. Whenever you have to pry something really bad, you're much better off using this instead, and it really doesn't take that much space. This is the thing that's going to be saving your tip from breaking, the tip from prying unnecessarily, so when you just add a small little pry bar like this. So of course, very small. This is the Pico, I think it's called Pico pry bar, made in US government. I don't know about that, but it's a very compact tool. I think that folks that don't have other tools may end up using this a lot more than I do, so maybe there's a lesson there. If you don't have, or if you don't see yourself carrying as much stuff as I do, this is something that may end up being more handy, because for cutting packages, a little bit of tape, a little bit of paper or boxes, that's easily done with something like this, and it's obviously so compact. This is the ThruNite T flashlight, titanium, very bright, using just a AA battery, which I checked recently, but let me do that again. Little tip there, the IKEA batteries, very good, very affordable. If you're around IKEA with your wife or something, grab a few of their batteries because they're very cheap and they work pretty well. Sometimes cheap batteries can damage some very expensive stuff, so it's good to know when you have good options out there. It starts with that moonlight mode, medium, and absurdly bright high mode, almost in a 200 lumen range. So yeah, and I like that it's titanium as well. I think it's titanium for most of my stuff whenever I can get it. I like, because just looks great, holds on well as time goes by. Sometimes with aluminum you have a little bit more of a wear showing and such. Since we're talking about aluminum, I have the flashlight here with the aluminum body. This is the Eagletac D25C with my little, this is something I do usually to stuff that I'm carrying for my flashlights, a whistle and a little bit more of a visible lanyard there. Around, man, what is it, like 300 lumens I think it is. It's pretty bright. Maybe there's something better out there these days, but I upgraded to this one not that long ago. At least it doesn't feel like it. And I have seen some of other stuff. I like the Zebra light as well. Now this is very compact, and maybe that's why it ends up in my pocket so often. It's a very compact light with a flush, clicky button that really doesn't accidentally engage, which is something that I've had happen to me before with other non-flush buttons. So it's bright enough for the intended purposes. Using a rechargeable battery, which makes it even easier and cheaper, of course, to use. and again how small it is. If it's not this one, it's usually this one that finds its way to my pocket, the Victorinox T10T in titanium, also using a rechargeable battery, but this time with the ability of using also a standard AA battery if needed. Now it's not going to be as bright as the 14500 through Trustfire that I'm using in it, but you know, it's nice to have the option of using standard commonly available primaries as well. Again, flush button there, and the much nicer titanium body. I've been using both of these, trying to and testing them at night when walking around and such, trying to decide which one is the one that I like the most. I still can't make up my mind. That's why I'm basically using both. This one is of course shorter, but a little bit thicker, with more chunkier, brighter, but the color is better than this one. This is a neutral white color. It has a little bit of better throw, I believe, so it somewhat compensates. I think this is on the 200 lumen range versus 300. But this one, even though it's brighter, it doesn't throw as good as this one, so it sort of compensates the lack of lumen for better throw and better light color. So yes, either one of these is an excellent option. You know, it's an excellent option as an EDC flashlight. Just make sure you at least have one. It's still with the Leatherman Charge Tti, just fantastic tool that I use all the time. You know, I use it absolutely for everything, for removing micro SIM cards from the cell phone with that nice, delicate, fine tip that it has. The edge holds on for quite some time, given that it's S30V, at least in this version. That's one of the nice things about the Charge Tti versus the normal, or for example the Wave, which is the Leatherman Wave is also an excellent multi-tool. But let me see if I even have one here nearby. Yeah, actually I do. So, you know, if you're in more of a little bit more of a limited budget, maybe you'll go with the Wave. The Wave is also a great multi-tool. This is a black Wave, right? Basically a same multi-tool, but you don't have the titanium scales, which just look nicer for sure. They're also more comfortable. If you're using the multi-tool a lot, maybe you're not using it as much, but sometimes, every once in a while, there's something that it's not easily done that requires for prolonged use of the multi-tool. The sculpture scales are much more comfortable than the ones in the Wave. That much I can assure you. So if you can afford it, I always recommend going with the Charge Tti like this one. You also have better steel. You basically see that the same blade shape as well. All right. How much of a difference does steel quality make? In general, those of us that do know knives will say, if it's properly heat treated, really not that much of a big deal. Having said that, if you can afford better steel, usually I recommend going for it. All right, especially for something that you're using all the time, for something that you're using often, and especially if you are yourself someone that knows how to sharpen a knife properly, you will find that, yes, at least I can say this much. I sharpen this blade far less often than I would have to sharpen this one. For example, and it's really just no big complaint, but a tool that I really love and appreciate, the German Army knife by Victorinox. Fantastic pocket knife. The steel is okay, but it's a little bit soft, on the softer side. The intended purpose is a soldier's knife, and it's a little bit more flexible, right? But the steel is softer, right? The idea is something that won't break as easily as tougher steel, and especially for a soldier use, really wouldn't be making much sense to use S30V in it. Now, as good as it is, because it's still fantastic, Victorinox sure is, you do need to sharpen it a little bit more often. At the same time, it's easier, much easier to resharpen a Victorinox than to sharpen S30V, which some folks that are maybe not as proficient in sharpening, they find it particularly challenging, and they may be much better served with the kind of steel that you have in a Victorinox. So, you know, it just makes depends on what you're needing, and if you have the ability to make good use of of the more expensive, better steel. Again, end of the day, the Charge is a great multi-tool that, man, I don't think it's been beaten yet. I don't think there's something better out there yet than the Leatherman Charge Tti. In terms of pocket knife, I've recently moved to the ZeroTolerance ZT0630 Emerson collaboration. I'm loving it. I really think it's maybe one of the best 4-inch pocket knives. It's not actually 4-inch, it's like 3.65 or 3.60, so it's just under a little bit under 3 inches. But man, a tank of a blade, you know, very solid construction. You have the titanium scale with a frame lock here and a steel insert. Fantastic S35VN steel, and the Emerson design in general is very well made, very well thought through. You have your index finger growth so as to get a good grip on your knife and avoid the hand from slipping forward. You have the wave feature, which I've learned to love these last few weeks. Just it snaps open out of the pocket, just catches the fabric on the side of the pocket, and bam, there it goes. Almost like an automatic knife, you know. And once you get used to it, you really do appreciate that feature. I've always been a cold steel guy, so maybe one of the more clear comparisons would be the 4-inch Cold Steel Voyager clip point and this one. This is an excellent value knife. You have even a stronger locking mechanism with a triad lock than you would have here. Now, the frame locks, especially from ZeroTolerance, catch a ton of hate on YouTube, unnecessarily so. I mean, if you're gonna be using this knife for defense and you're using it properly as you should, and the frame lock fails, I would be extremely surprised. Now, if you start bashing with this knife against a chunk of wood, if you start whacking the spine until something happens, now realistically you would be doing this with the knife. You know, if you're using this knife for defensive purposes, right? Let's call it that. You're holding this knife this way, the only way you should be holding a knife, and this somehow manages to disengage. I mean, that's something that you should have noticed ahead of time, because it shouldn't be engaging properly. Man, I mean, if you're gonna be breaking this knife, when I would be extremely surprised if that happens to anyone. Now, if you're gonna be bashing these two knives, this is going to be probably outlasting the ZeroTolerance. In terms of design, in terms of quality of construction, in terms of steel quality as well, I think it's clear that, yeah, that $200 knife is, you're getting more. One of the things that I like about it is, as you see, you have a thicker blade. Now, this wasn't always the case. Cold Steel used to make the Sabre grind blades, like they still do with their Tanto blades, right? And is this that much of a big deal? At least for me it is, because I don't like the idea of blades breaking, especially not when you need them the most, and especially not their tips. And as you see, you have a lot more steel here than you have here, especially when you get close to the tip. So how much of a big deal is it? Yeah, somewhat of it, just could happen in a time of need. I prefer to have a strong, tough blade. That's just me. Sometimes you can compensate with having just more blade in general, like you would have, for example, with my favorite pocket knife, which is this one, the Cold Steel Large Vaquero. Notice how thin that tip is. But at the same time, you have a 5-inch blade, right? So if it ends up breaking here, you still have quite a bit of a knife. It's still something that I would have preferred Cold Steel not do, which is go for a full flat grind blade. Just for commercial reasons, I think it's not as logical. You can still have an extremely sharp blade with the classic Sabre grind, right? With a classic Sabre grind, you can still have an extremely sharp razor sharp shaving blade and not have that weakness of the full flat grind, which is intended for chef knives. All right, guys, at least that's the way I see it, my opinion. Guys, any of these are excellent options depending on what you can wherever it is that you are, but you are definitely going to be very well served by a ZeroTolerance Z0630 Emerson collaboration. No question there. Beautiful blade as well, of course. Just one of those things that, yes, it's a little bit more expensive, but man, you have that tip penetrates very well for the length of a blade that you have. You have quite a bit of a belly. I'm a big believer in recurve blades, right? But I'm okay with this one as well. I'm happy enough with it, and I love the quick deployment of the wave. In terms of watch, still using the Casio Pro Trek in titanium, and yeah, finally a small bag with coins, which, you know, just comes in handy. Folks, it's gonna be all. Oh yeah, my shades. These are still using the Wiley X revolvers. Fantastic shades for just carrying around, especially with the summer, with the sunny weather in Spain in spite of being winter. Guys, that's gonna be all for now. Remember to subscribe. Take care. See you on our next video.